The topic that I chose to do was burnout in the medical field. And this is my presentation. The definitions of burnout from one of my references is multifaceted syndrome that develops gradually over time and manifests with physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. I really like this definition of burnout because a lot of people think that burnout is just something physically. This is something that physically just happens to you, and it's not. What's really common with burnout in the medical field is the medical field itself is not just very physically demanding, but it's also very emotionally and mentally exhausting. And later I will talk about an emotional bank. And it's just kind of crazy how you really have to give yourself into this job. Another reference said that burnout can be understood as both a psychological and a physical condition, typically results from a perceived threat or demand neither easily dealt with. And how I really understood this was I just really thought about my care center and what we have to deal with and all the residents that we have to take care of and how this demand is not easily met. How you have 12 residents to toilet every 2 hours, which does not seem like a lot, but it actually is. And I think this leads to burnout as well. And that's how I connected with this one. That's why I really liked this one as well. And I also like that this one just doesn't talk about the physical condition, it's also a psychological. The things that can lead to burnout is emotional exhaustion. This just happens when you keep giving yourself and you're not really focusing on yourself or taking care of yourself. Decrease personal accomplishment. I know from personal experience, I actually suffered from burnout, and it's something that I'm still trying to recover from. But I, for a long time, felt like I was not doing the best that I could, and that's because I just never was getting back to that all-time high where I felt like I was accomplishing everything, and I felt like I was doing a really good job. You're unable to face demands. Like an example would be having those 12 residents to take care of. It's just unrealistic and it's really hard to do. And that's just a demand that you cannot do. You can't engage with others. This just happens not just with engaging with others, people that you work with, like your coworkers, but this also deals with your residents and your patients and your supervisors. Detachment from work, patients viewed as objects. That is very common that people will be like, view their patients as objects instead of people when this happens. That is a really bad stage of burnout. And you don't contribute meaningfully, meaning you're just kind of there to do the job. You're just there to get it over with. A lot of people think, like I said, that in the medical field, that it's just physical labor and it's actually emotional and mental. You're not just there for the residents to clean them up and to assist with their daily living. You're also there emotionally for them. And if you can't be there for them emotionally and just physically, you're not really doing a meaningful job. You're not really completing your job. The characteristics of burnout, these are just things that can help contribute to burnout even more. Just like my last slide, I just labeled it different. But time pressure is one of them. The lack of control with work processes. I think this is really common in my work field because we get new residents in all the time. And the ratio isn't very well from aides to patients. So that makes me feel like I have a lot of lack of control. Role conflict, meaning you just don't really know what your role is, or there's too many roles and you can't get them all lined out. Bad relationships with groups in your leadership, having bad relationships with your nurse is some problems for CNAs, or just your supervisors or clerks, or ward clerks even, and stuff like that. Personal predisposing factors. A lot of people think that burnout just comes from work, and it's actually not just from your work, but it's also from your personal life. So you need to keep that in check. Emotional intensity, and that's just how much your job calls from you. Data on my burnout. This is data that I gathered from people. I interviewed about 5 people, and I realized that anyone ranging from 1 year to 6 years, they all had experienced burnout at my workplace. And it wasn't just CNAs, it was also nurses as well. Some even suffered from injuries, really bad injuries, where they had to leave work for a while, and that was like some back injuries, rotator cuff, and shoulder problems. I think I get that a lot of people think of burnout as physical, and they just think, oh, you're just physically tired. But no, you can actually really hurt yourself if you are at that stage of burnout. What burnout means to health care professionals. I just asked a lot of people, like, what does burnout mean to you? And these are the things that they come up with. I think these are really good. When you first come on as a CNA, not when I first started 4 years ago, did they explain what burnout was and how to prevent it. And now it's something that we're more willing to talk about, but it's also one of those things that you don't really talk about because admitting it is really hard, and knowing that you're out of that emotional bank is also really hard. Preventions is, I asked the girls that I interviewed, like, what are the preventions that you've realized to use for yourself? And these are the ones that they said. I really want to talk about look at your emotional bank account. That's just how much you're giving of yourself. A lot of people, especially caregivers, they like to give and give, and they overdo it. You can't do that. You can't just keep giving. You do need to realize I can only do so much as a human being, and it's okay to also say that they need help. I looked at this one graph that had an emotional bank, and it said that you're never, when you first start your job, you're at the highest peak emotionally, and as you become burnout, you just go to okay, and then you go to bad, but you never go all the way back to really great. And that's the problem. People don't ever give themselves enough time off of work to ever get back to great. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about that emotional bank. These are the references I used. Thank you for listening to my PowerPoint. I hope you guys learned something. Thank you.